So, howdy. Hi. There's Marguerite is a wonderful counselor and a therapist, and I'm Darren, and acupuncture, bodywork, Tai Chi teacher, all this kind of stuff. And August is Marguerite's son. Some people think I'm his dad sometimes, which is really nice. And August is cool. You can tell by his guitar. And we're going to have a chat. We're going to talk about stuff, and August is going to help us. Anything you'd like to say?
This is Buggy.
Hi, Buggy.
Yeah, Buggy's awesome.
How old is Buggy?
Buggy's old.
Like lifetimes old?
Ancient.
Oh, pretty cool.
Yeah.
Buggy is very wise.
Yeah. So Buggy's with us.
Cool. Strap yourselves in.
Buckle up.
Buckle up. We're going to blast off with some wisdom.
All right, I'll step out.
I'm out of here now. Why do people need meditation? Why do people need to look inside themselves, to find therapists and counselors and healers and acupuncturists and, play guitar and, do healing things? Why do we need to heal? Right, Marguerite?
Yeah, and why does anyone come to see you?
Why does anyone come to see me or you? Right. What's the point? So August is here to help us with our journey and exploration into what the heck. I think that should be the title of this video, What the Heck.
I like it.
So August, he comes to see me for acupuncture, and so that I can generally annoy him constantly. He comes to my Tai Chi class. So, August.
Yeah.
Why, before you met me for acupuncture and Tai Chi practice and meditation, and was everything fine and happy? You were just laying and playing the guitar and chilling with the vibes?
No. Well, I would probably have been on a substance.
I see. What were you doing?
Just drinking. Yeah.
So,
smoking.
doing the pot.
Yeah, doing the pot.
Yeah, I'm over 60, so I'm going to say doing the pot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Why is that bad? Why is drinking and pot bad, and, doing cannabis, doing things? What's wrong with it?
Well, it's actually, I didn't realize how I guess I felt it, but I didn't know how, I didn't really understand how I felt about doing it and when I was doing it. And you really helped me to understand more of how I feel when I did them. Like, when I would do cannabis or do pot, even sometimes if I didn't want to, or if I wasn't feeling it, well, actually that was a lot of times now that I'm thinking about it, when I didn't want to, or I would just do it anyway.
Because you were with your friends doing it, or
just because I was alone, like even when I was just alone. And so I came to you, and then you helped me notice a feeling that whenever I was high, I felt really like out of my body.
Mm-hmm.
And I really don't like that, actually.
Why didn't you like that? What was wrong with that? Like, some people would say, wow, I'm out of my body. Wow, I don't have to feel anything anymore. I don't have to feel pain. I don't have to feel,
It makes me want to cry, just feeling it. It really, it doesn't feel good. It feels like I can't feel anything.
So that you didn't like that?
No,
Okay.
It actually really scares me.
And what's the difference now that you don't do it anymore? supposedly?
Well, well, the difference now would be I feel like I notice things more, and so it's helped me, and it's also helped me to like grow away from friends and people who do it, because I have noticed that feeling, and I don't want to be around people who.
So what's wrong with being around those people?
Um,
Why did you need to grow away from them?
well, I think it's more about the relationship between us. Like, um, it just doesn't. It's if you're around people who want to do it all the time, and I don't want to do it anymore, then there's like, what are we doing if we just want to like sit around and talk about weed? I don't want to sit around and talk about weed anymore.
So it wasn't very intellectually stimulating. Are you better off without it?
I think so, because if you ask me to describe them, I would say they're a bunch of addicts, and it's just like, I don't want to be an addict anymore.
Okay, so there's something about it that feels restrictive?
Yeah, it totally feels restrictive. Yeah.
Like, okay, all right.
Yeah, it feels like, yeah, I mean, it just feels like doing something that I don't want to do anymore.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Can you play some guitar for us?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think it's really, I'm so proud and grateful, Ogs, that you can just be really honest with what you've worked through and what you're working on, and yeah, and that you really want to feel things, and you really want to like have a more fulfilling life.
Yeah.
It makes me really happy as a mom.
I'm so glad that you're so cool. You're really cool.
He's very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, you're awesome. We were
Okay.
hanging out. Last night we went to a concert, and I was like thinking about it while I was at work, and I was like, wow, she's totally like my best friend. Like, it was awesome. Yeah.
And how did you used to treat her before you met me?
Not well.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, it was not good.
So, parental note to self. Send child to Darren's school. Darren's school of
Seriously.
self-reflection and feeling intensely and listening to the depths of the pain.
There you go. The heart of darkness. Thank you, August.
Thank you, Darren.
Thank you, Marguerite.
Thank you both.
We are continuing our chat with August about why is it that we ever need to heal? Like, what is it that needs to heal? What is healing? What do we need? Do we need to meditate? Do we need to stop what we're doing? Why? Why do we need to seek out therapy or change anything, or what's wrong? So before we were talking about something seems wrong. Something seems like, well, at first maybe, your life's going along and everything's fine, but then there's some change that you go through. Maybe you see things in a different way, or you have a different experience, or you stop using some substance for a while, and suddenly you see your past, you see the people that you used to hang out with as a little different, or maybe it's uncomfortable now to hang out with them. Because you feel like what I've heard from patients and experienced in my own life is when you change, it's difficult sometimes to, I guess you could say, go back. It's difficult to be in that same situation again because you see things differently. You relate to yourself differently. You want to take care of yourself because it feels better. Every time I've been treating people for 30 something years, and every time somebody's come in, they've stopped taking some substance, or they've changed how they see the relationships in their life, and things open up for them in a way that they couldn't before, and so they see the difference. So everything is useful as a tool when we need it. Cannabis is a very powerful thing. For example, your whole body is a cannabinoid receptor, it seems. So, however, and this isn't my moralistic thing, this is patients coming to me going, get me off of this stuff because I haven't grown. I'm still the same person with the same ideas and thoughts and beliefs, and I don't know how to get to the next place. They have this feeling that their life is stuck. And having studied a lot of different traditions like Buddhism and Taoism and stuff, this reminds me of the Buddha who wrote after he sat under the tree. Some of this is a little mythological, but there's some truth. Sat, became enlightened to some idea of how to end suffering and what suffering was. So he wrote this stuff down, and it became the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, this whole Buddhist thing. And my understanding of it, the first line of the Four Noble Truths, how to end suffering, is acknowledging that life is suffering. So that's an English translation of what it was written in. Acknowledge that life is suffering. There's some translations that I've seen. And I think what it means, like some people could hear that and go, well, life is suffering. So, yeah, I'm suffering. So I've lived life. Like, that's how it is. What's the point? But it's a little deeper than that. When we acknowledge something, it starts to change. When you acknowledge how you feel, not by yelling it at somebody, but by going, yeah, I acknowledge that grief or that sadness, or I'm really angry, or I acknowledge how I'm feeling about something and what my experience is. It starts to change. Sometimes we think, oh, if I acknowledge things, then it's just going to get worse. It's like superstitious. Like if I say the name of Beelzebub 3 times, it'll come. If you acknowledge how you feel for real, and you just hang out there for a moment, then it gets easier to acknowledge the next feeling and the next feeling and the next feeling. And yes, a lot of stuff comes up. But otherwise, it's been sitting there causing tension and stress in your body for years and years and years that lead into various, in my experience, various medical conditions. So it's valuable to acknowledge how we feel and not just be separating from it all the time. And August was talking about how when he stopped doing cannabis stuff, the pot, he started to feel stuff more. He started to have a different feeling about things where he could feel stuff more, have more feeling. And it was a positive thing for him. And like I said, sometimes it's difficult, and that's why we have therapists, and and you go and you see people for help, because sometimes it's hard to work through these things, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't. So I wanted to talk about earlier about like why even do it. But I think for people who have gone through these changes, you understand why to do it.
Why to do what?
Why to make changes. Why to stop whatever substance you're doing so you can, in the old Saturday Night Live, there was some interview that I saw with several of the comedians where they were talking about they didn't want to stop drinking or doing drugs because they were afraid they wouldn't be funny. They were afraid their creativity would be worse. And what they discovered is that they were better because they were actually able to think about what they were doing, and they already had that talent. It wasn't the drugs that was making it coming out of them. That was just a compensation. It was why they needed therapy, is so they could just be themselves. So that's why I told August to stop doing the pot. It's because I wanted him to be his awesome self. If you need pot, then who is that? Who is that? right?
That's me being uncomfortable and wanting to feel free of the discomforts.
Wanting to feel free of the discomfort. Yeah. So what is it that's going on that you're uncomfortable about? And you were saying that you weren't really aware of that until I made a presence in your life and gave you a hard time. And then you say, yeah, I am uncomfortable about stuff. So my question to you is like, am I just saying you're uncomfortable? And then you're like, oh, maybe I was. But you started to notice something for yourself.
And I noticed it even before. Like I noticed that I noticed it before I came to see you too, but I didn't have like I guess I didn't have that enough faith in it, or I didn't know what it was until you were like until
So through therapy, counseling, through mindful awareness, you were able to become more conscious of what you're only peripherally aware of or subconsciously aware of.
Yeah.
So to me, that's what the Buddha did. So August is like the Buddha. So I like hanging around him. The Buddha sat down under a tree. Now, sitting under a tree is like between heaven and earth. Those are old words in Asian philosophy that just means everything. Anything you can name is like between heaven and earth. And that's what the Taiji means. Taiji Chuan, the art of the Taiji symbol. Taiji means everything you can name before you can't name something. So the Buddha sat under a tree and started to acknowledge everything that was in his experience. That's what I think he did, because that seemed to work for me. I just sat down and I was like, what is my experience? What do I notice? What's over my shoulder? Why is my shoulder tight? What's going on? We're going to show you. I'm going to demonstrate how I did this in a little bit. But just acknowledging everything that's in my experience. And for that, you need a little imagination. You need to be able to feel stuff. You need to be able to connect with your experience and to have the courage sometimes to see things that you might be pushing away or afraid of.
Darren, I have a question.
Yes.
How come you have to have an imagination to really be with what is? Like, what is the actual truth?
Because imagination is like we have a certain idea of like, this is how life is, and that's how it is, and that's how it is. This is, like all of this. The big square, as they used to say.
So linear.
So linear, very literal, like by appearances. And with imagination, you can see things in different ways. People tend to discount imagination. Even in medicine, they want to discount imagination. One of the scientists was talking about, I think Neil deGrasse Tyson, he was saying that when you first hear about quantum physics, for example, or string theory, it's strange because it's not like algebra and geometry. It's different. It's like 180 degrees different from that. Like algebra and geometry is like playing pool and all the balls hit into each other and go into pockets. And quantum theory and string theory is something like there's no pool table. It's just vibrations, and it's an interpretation based on the observer changing what they observe or whatever. I wish I knew the physics, but that's the sense I have of what he was saying, is that it's just, it takes a while to see something in a different way. And that's learning. How do you go from where you are to learning something new? There's this space in there where you get confused and maybe have to come up against and understand and look deeper at what your beliefs and ideas and logic says. So imagination is the tool that you can use to get to that new place where you can actually experience something that also seems logical. And then you have to go and compare and go, should I hang on to this stuff? Does that work for me? As the Taoists would say, does it work? Or is this new stuff working better for me? And I found each time that the new stuff worked better for me. So,
Can I also add in something?
Yes.
I think that our imagination helps us understand more deeply who we are and our personal stories that we carry, because we are multidimensional beings.
That's groovy. I took a physics class once, and the teacher started off by saying, everything I'm about to teach you is a lie. Like, but we have to learn how to build bridges, and how will a flame fly, and what a plane fly, and all this stuff. So he threw a ball across the room and said, what angle is it going in? And the people on this side said whatever angle, and the people on this side was a different angle. And he's like, who's right? It's just based on your observations. So, but we can't do that building a bridge. There's got to be a certain like structure, and it may not be the whole answer, but we still have to drive our cars over the bridge for the moment. So it's a tool.
Yeah.
And every scientist is just waiting to be proven wrong. Like if you're an adult, mature scientist, you are thrilled. It may be embarrassing a little, but you're thrilled when you find something new that works. And if you're not a scientist. That's Darren's personal opinion.
Yeah, so it's like whatever, we're only limited by our imagination.
Right.
So it helps us find something new. It also, I feel like imagination is kind of another way of talking about like seeing things in our mind. That's maybe intuition, that's maybe memories. How do we ever do work with trauma, past trauma,
right,
if we can't, really visualize something in our mind?
So the part of this that I think that you're alluding to is, or saying directly to, is traditional people had what we call myths. Tell me if this sounds right for what you're saying. Traditional people had a bunch of myths, and somebody like Joseph Campbell went through and did his professorial work of organizing and looking and seeing all the commonalities of different. Now you might agree or disagree, but if you look at all the different cultures, I've looked at a lot of different cultures and their practices, and there's a lot of the same stuff. Ideas about birth and about death and about the transitions we go through in life. And all the myths are about these different transitions. So you can say that they're just imagination, like just imagination. However, they talk about all the same things you're talking about with your counselor and your therapist, and all the things you're going through, and why it's their names for what's happening. And by seeing it as a more mythological idea, the symbolism and the story of it, the patterns that are created in that story, can give us more information, and deeper and make connections to what we're going through,
and lead us more to our truth.
Right.
That it reveals itself over and over again. But I think, what was it? I feel like one of my teachers from my expressive art therapy program would talk about how Joseph Campbell's work and all this work around myth and story is so important because it helps us make meaning of our life.
Mm-hmm.
There's something, like if we can, and there's all sorts of people talking about this, but like if you can tell the story of your life, right, or tell it in story form, you can more easily harness the meaning.
Mm-hmm.
So there's
right,
there's some real magic that happens in the story land, in the myth land, in the
right,
symbol land, that's really important to who we are as humans.
Right. Yes. And so that's something that I discovered by how I do my meditation, looking inside and having my imagination be part of that looking inside process, to see what am I feeling, what am I thinking, but what does my imagination think I'm feeling and thinking? That's often different. So August.
Yeah.
So August.
You and I are going to talk about mindfulness.
All right.
Oh my god.
And how to meditate, how to heal, how to look inside. People have trouble sometimes with their imagination and looking inside. So let's see if we can help them out.
All right.
I've seen that there are practices that some schools have with the kids when they practice mindfulness. And they will, for example, they'll hold a raisin up. And usually this is in other countries, like Norway or Sweden or whatever, they teach yoga and mindfulness.
So much smarter.
So much smarter. All of the wonderful things about how to notice things and be aware of things and appreciate the qualities of things. Like a guitar. So the kids will go, like, what does it look like? What color is it? What does it taste like? So what are some of the qualities that you can, just the physical qualities, the attributes of your guitar?
Well, it's black. It looks like a guitar. It has these nice strings. They go bigger and smaller, and they feel good. They have like little indents on the strings, and it feels really nice to hold as a whammy bar.
Whammy?
Yeah.
That's a cool word.
Reminds me of weenuses.
Yes.
Anyway, sorry.
The weenus. I'll have text come over here. It's like weenus.
And t-shirts later for sale.
Don't be shy if I ask about your weenus.
Anyway, whammies.
So, what other qualities about it? Does it feel heavy? Is it light?
It's like it's pretty light. It feels good, but it's just heavy enough to feel like I have something. Yeah.
What color are there?
There's black and there's brown and silver and white and cream.
How do you feel about all those colors? Would you prefer that they were different colors, or do you like those colors?
I like these colors. They're nice.
And what's nice about it? Do they excite you? Do they calm you down? Do they, like, can you name what it is that you enjoy about these colors?
Well, they feel really... They feel like, they all fit together really nice, and it just like, it feels can they all...
So there's some way that they all come together for you that makes it feel good.
Yeah.
And where do you feel that? Do you feel that somewhere in your body that you can name? Like, it gives me a warm feeling in my tummy, or my weenus.
I actually feel it in my leg, in like in my shin, my left upper shin.
Yeah? That's where you get that good feeling?
Well, I don't know. That's why I was just feeling it now.
So maybe in the future when you play your guitar, you'll be like...
Yeah.
That'll be cool.
Yeah.
So it moves you in some way. Does it cause the movement in your leg, or you just have a feeling there?
Well, I haven't noticed it, but maybe I bounce my leg. But right now it's just a feeling.
So there you go. So it helped you to tune in by acknowledging the attributes and qualities of, or that might be the same word, attribute qualities, I don't know, of the guitar. You suddenly tuned into, and with a little guidance, you tuned into something that you hadn't been aware of before, only maybe just peripherally or subconsciously.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Really cool.
So that's meditation, right? People call it mindfulness or something. I don't know. The kind of meditation that I do is like that. And it combines a lot of different therapies that you might have encountered. And especially if you're a therapist who knows these different therapies, you'll recognize some of the ways that I do things. But it's very similar to just the overall umbrella term of mindfulness. Meaning just, which was coined by somebody.
I don't know.
I'll have that name over here somewhere during our video. But it's just really about noticing, what are you experiencing? And when you do that long enough, I've noticed when I've done that long enough to notice every time I notice what I'm experiencing, there's something uncomfortable about it at first, but then something in my life changes when I notice things. When I notice things in a certain way, when I notice it, how I'm feeling about something, what I'm experiencing, the pain gets less, my relationships get smoother, uh, everything changes, my health changes. I've had patients come in talking about anxiety or depression. Every time we dive into what is it that you're actually acknowledging, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and it becomes more manageable and more manageable over time.
Yeah, more processed, more digested.
More digest it instead of resist it. Because you think if you pay attention to something, it'll just get larger. And maybe at first, but then it actually, when you name a demon, it starts to be controlled. It starts to be controlled in a way where you're not using force to control it. It starts to unwind. You start pulling threads on what it's made out of, and it starts to unwind.
Take a little bit of its power away.
You take all of its, but you can take all of its power away by knowing where it came from. And where it comes from is often quite unrelated to what you think, what you're thinking consciously. It's not just a simple thing. There's many different ways that, like for instance, when I have pain, like let's say I have pain in my shoulder over here, or somebody comes in with pain in their shoulder. The way that I've seen the body work is that when you lift your arm, you're not just lifting your arm. There's certain muscles that engage to lift your arm, but then your nervous system is involved and your brain function and the emotions about lifting your arm. All of this happened really quick, and then all the stabilizers, antagonists, and like all the other muscles doing all their job. You have to recruit your whole body. So in Tai Chi practice, Tai Chi Chuan, martial art that I practice, there's a little books on all the classic kind of wisdom about things. They say that there's an expression. When one thing moves, everything moves. So it's a teaching about when you move your arm, extend through your whole body. So it's like a dancer. When they move, their whole body is moving.
So when we pull one thread,
more start happening. More things start happening. More awareness starts happening. More unfolds. And we use the same word, like in your mind. Like for instance, we use the same words for digesting food that we use for emotions. Like I can't stomach that, or bit off more than I can chew. And I've asked people who speak different languages, and there always seems to be something similar to that. When we're talking about relaxing, we use the word unwind. And when body workers and people who work with the body work with the connective tissue, the fascia, it has that feeling of unwinding as well. Mind and body doing the same thing. So that if we're holding on to something in our mind, how do you hold on to it? It starts to tighten up parts of your body, how you're holding on. So when you start to understand why you're holding on to it and what it's about, then that starts to unwind in your mind, and then your body can start to unwind.
It's like through awareness of things, we need to grip it less.
Yes.
And thus our body can grip less.
Right. We start to ungrip. We start to lose our grip. We start to ungrip. We start to become free of all the control that we're putting on our body, how we're holding our spine, how we're holding our hips, how we're tightening up our jaw, all the stress responses. So that's how beliefs and ideas and feelings that we hold on to in our mind show up in our body. And through meditation, through mindfulness, through observing the qualities of what we're experiencing, and I'll show you in a little bit how to do that, or how I do it. When you notice things, they start to change. When you acknowledge something, it starts to change. Just like I was talking about with the Buddha, when you acknowledge what you're experiencing, things start to change. So your life may be suffering right now. the experience of life may be suffering, like things are just not how they seem. This isn't my beautiful house. This isn't, like Talking Heads song. Things just don't feel right. Well, how did I get here? But when you start to acknowledge things, you start to see the connections of how you got here. What the ancient people call karma, which is the science of cause and effect. It's not a bad thing or a good thing. It's just how things work. How does one situation turn into the next and the next and the next? What are the connections? Where do things come from? So in meditation, you can start to see all of the stories in your life and how you got to where you are, the cause and effect. And because you can see that at a deeper level, you start to lose blaming. You start to stop blaming the things outside yourself, and you start to see something deeper within yourself where real healing comes from.
Wow, Darren, I just had an idea. When you start to acknowledge your stories, right, and what is and what's living in your body, you're seeing more the truth. And I'm like, well, what's the connection with the body? The body doesn't, or our being doesn't have to hold on and attach and accommodate, right? And like tighten around and like work so hard when we just know the truth, when we just see our truth.
Well, at first, sometimes when we're pulling the threads, we're seeing an accumulation of layers. This is what they call the onion. And each one of those has a truth in it, but it's also mixed up with a lot of misunderstandings and different ways of looking at things. So it's kind of like if somebody tells you something and you react, nobody can talk to you because you're reactive. So if every layer you go through, you think, oh my God, and then you can't go to the next layer because you're reacting to the first one, you get stuck again. So then you have to start the process over and you go, what do I notice now? How am I stuck? What's coming up for me? What color is it? What shape is it? Where does it take me? And you start to pull more threads of curiosity. And then you go through, so you can't take things too personal and too literal too quickly. It's like, again, it's like somebody's telling you a story, and if you react to everything they're saying, nobody can talk to you, including your own psyche, your own spirit. So we need to be open to listening. And listening doesn't mean following. We all have so many definitions and emotional definitions and reactions to words, mostly because they've been used that way as weapons. Listening just means listening. It means gathering information, intelligence, wisdom. It just means digesting things and allowing your mind to handle seeing 100 different ways of seeing things without choosing any of them. It's not about having a new belief. It's just about seeing what you see. And if you're restricting your mind because you're afraid of your imagination seeing something other than what you believe, you just put yourself in a prison. You're restricting your own mind because you're afraid of your own imagination. You don't have to actually believe anything. It's just seeing a whole circle of different ways of seeing things. And if you don't see value in that, then I guess this video isn't for you. What can I say? You can only say it so many different ways, I guess. You gotta kind of have an experience that it's actually something that you want, that's beneficial to see things in different ways. And if you allow it, at first it's scary. So I can understand why people don't do it. It makes sense to hold on to things sometimes. It makes sense to control, like, oh, because we've been so afraid, and it's exhausting to be afraid all the time. But as my teachers used to say, too bad, so sad. I had different teachers tell me that. The same, when I complained about things, they would say, you do the work, you listen, you pay attention, and you'll see. Because otherwise it's just an intellectual exercise where I'm saying, oh, meditation is nice, you should do it. Instead of you having an experience of what it is for you. and the depth that you can go and the changes that you can see and how beneficial it is for it in your life, then you'll understand. And you probably won't have to watch this video then, or it'll be nice to watch the video because then you go, hey, somebody else sees, that too, and that's nice.
Do you want to give a demo?
I'd love to give a demo.
Right on.
Do you want to give a demo?
Sure.
Do you want to hang out with me while I demo?
Yeah.
All right. Can I lick your guitar again?
Yeah.
Wow. That's love.
This is all going in the video. All right. So first I need some tea.
Okay.
There's my friend and I used to have tea in the restaurant, and they used to have, what is it? The tea bags had a little saying on them. And one of the sayings that we saw was, I am glad that I was not born before tea. And my friend and I used to say that all the time whenever we would have tea or talk about anything that was tea-like. I don't know.
I'm glad you weren't born before tea.
I am glad I was not born before tea.
I think you've said that to me before.
Yes. That means that I like you when I say I was not born before tea in front of you.
Oh, cool.
There you go.
Really glad you're both here right now.
Aw, thank you. So, when doing this exercise, you can pick a focus, like let's say you have some pain, whether it's emotional or physical, something that you can focus on. Over the years, for me, I just close my eyes and I just go, what do I notice? And wherever my mind goes, that's where I go. But it might be helpful, let's see. Yeah, so it'll be helpful for me to start with a focus. So I'm going to focus on some discomfort or pain that I've had with my body, so I will share that. All right, so let's say that I'm going to play kind of both roles. And I'm going to be therapist and, the facilitator and the person doing the work. So yeah, there'll be some blurring going on between those two roles.
Maybe Buggy could be the facilitator.
Oh, Buggy. Hi, Buggy. He's like, don't pull out my ear. Oh, that's your hand. Sorry. He's like.
It's yeah.
Okay, so can you play the role of Buggy?
I really wanted to see you play the role of Buggy.
All right, so maybe I'll do my ventriloquist voice, Hello, hi Darren. I'll be your facilitator today. So Darren, what do you notice? Close your eyes. So, all right. So, usually when I'm working with patients, I'll go, all right, go ahead and close your eyes because that allows you to be more immersed in the process. And I say, okay, what do you notice about your pain or whatever? But I'll focus on my discomfort. So I have some discomfort in what I would call my hip flexor area here with the psoas muscle attaching on the spine. So it comes down and attaches in the leg. And I notice some discomfort through this muscle. It feels like it's pulling and tight. In my mind, my imagination, I can see it's almost like lavender, like the muscle is in my mind as I'm thinking about the anatomy that I know from pictures in school and working with people with my hands. In my mind, the muscle is showing to me as this kind of lavender and red and some other colors. Now, some people are familiar with kind of the meaning of colors or the meaning of symbols, but I don't pay attention to that. Only a little bit. In other words, I'm familiar with a lot of frameworks from Chinese medicine, Japanese medicine, Ayurvedic stuff, Native American ideas and thoughts and philosophies, and mythology from different cultures, and all kinds of, practices, whether it's clairvoyant or structural body work or all kinds of things. So the frameworks aren't the territory. They're just a little map. They're just an idea. So, for instance, if I'm listening to somebody talk and they start talking, let's say they use the word net, N-E-T. How the heck do I know what they're talking about? It depends on the context. Like if we're talking about basketball and they use the word net, maybe they're talking about the net, but I need to be like the basketball net, but maybe I need to be curious enough to go, are you talking about the basketball net? Because they might be using a metaphor to talk about all the money that people get paid and the net income that they use. Or they might have just shifted their conversation to hockey. Or might be talking about one of the basketball players who likes to use a net to catch butterflies. I mean, a net could be anything. And it could mean something totally different that the person thinks it means. So if I think that unicorns mean this, and the color purple means this, and the color yellow means this, I'm not listening anymore. I'm just categorizing it into intellectual ideas. So when I say that the color here is like this lavender purple, I'm just like storing that away in my my database for the moment. I'm just going, okay, that's just like we did with the guitar. Like, all right, there's this color here. I don't try and analyze it to death. Keep it flowing. Anything can mean anything. What does it mean in this moment? What is the teaching that's coming to me? For me, I think things that are spiritual teaching, they seem to be that way. So I'm being open to what the meaning is that's being presented to me rather than me putting meaning on top of it. So it's got this lavender color. It feels shorter, like it feels a little, like it looks swollen when I look at it with my mind. There's also this darker color, kind of like a black color. And it feels like my body, like my torso is being rotated a little bit. And, one of the frameworks of, I know anatomy, like how the hip flexor causes the rotation through the pelvis and blah, 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 and how it attaches on the spine. And so I can intellectually understand how this discomfort or pain is showing up. But, the nervous system sets the tone of the muscles, right? And where's the nerve? Why is the nervous system having my hip flexor contract while I'm laying down in this way, where it's so uncomfortable, where I feel pain being referred through my body in other places from this area? Why does my nervous system need my hip flexor to be tight right now? What is my nervous system reacting to? So if I don't use imagination, how do I know? So I play. So right now it's just play. It's like a brainstorming session where there's no wrong answers. So it's okay. So it's lavender and there's a little like white, yellow kind of flash that I just saw. And then the muscle feels kind of a little bulged up and swollen. And I can see that as an image. And however you do it, if you see images, if you just feel stuff, if you just think you're making it up, who cares? You just do it anyways. And then I have this feeling like something's sitting right on my hip down here. And it reminds me of when I was about 12 or 13, when I had my appendectomy. I had my appendix removed. I was sitting up on the top of the stairs that led down to the basement in our house, and my mom and dad were down below. And I was sitting, like literally writhing on the staircase going, this really hurts. And I was going, ah. And the look on my parents' face was, Darren's bothering us again. And not to give my parents a hard time, this is just my moment of talking about things. But like the boy who cried wolf, like I used to complain about everything. So they're like, okay, we're trying to watch TV and Darren's just, trying to get attention again.
Stop your complaining.
Stop your complaining. Oy vey.
Oy vey.
So, but what was coming on for me was I felt as though they were doing something very mean or bad to me. And that feeling is something that I feel around this area. It's like it's locked in there. So there's been times in my life where this pain has been there acting up, almost like kind of burning. And then I can feel the referral of that pain into different areas. So what else do I notice about it? So that's a memory that I have there that feels very like in the present, actually. And if I wasn't so familiar with listening to or noticing things and having this neutral kind of observer looking at things, I might get lost in the emotions of it. Where I'm like, oh, I have this resentment against my parents and I don't want to, and you just lock it in more. It keeps going through the same neural pathways over and over and just entrenching into your system. So I look at it like I'm working with someone else who has this pain, and you have a little more neutrality and you can observe. It's always easier to see somebody else's problems than your own. So just hang out back there and observe like it's somebody else. So then I hang out there and I notice there's some tension in my teeth now. Like, there's some tension in between my fingers and in between my toes. It's like that's the stress response, right? Where you get tense like this in this fight or flight response. So my breathing, I can notice that I'm actually getting triggered by, we use that word when you get a reaction to some thought or feeling. So I can feel like my breath is starting to get, like where I'm breathing more in shallowly in my chest. That's a sympathetic stress response. Right? So I can see that kid on the steps. So I've separated from it so I could see it a little more neutrally. And I notice all these reactions happening. And then I'm like, some people talk about like, okay, we'll talk to the inner child, so I'll tell them everything's going to be okay. But I don't do that. What I do is, not that that doesn't work, but for me in this moment, and mostly, it doesn't work for me. Everything's a tool. Use what works for you. But what works for me is that I look and I observe what this kid is going through in my mind. In other words, this image is a representation of a memory. It's not the actual event. And when people have been through really serious stuff and they start to think of things and they're really locked into the trauma of it, there isn't much of a separation between the real event and their imagination and their thoughts because it feels like even saying that it's imagination is discounting it. But for me, I'm at a place where I can look at it and it's imagination, even if I'm feeling it as a real thing. How I'm seeing it is in my mind and it's being interpreted. So I look at it, in other words, I'm taking a moment to be curious about what I'm actually seeing. So this kid on the stairs, I see him wrapped in a bunch of colors, like green and black, and it reminds me of like, resentment and anger and fear and like all of these different kind of emotions. And it's almost like a blanket being wrapped around him, right? And I don't try and psychoanalyze it yet. I'm just looking. What do I see? And as I'm doing this, the pain is getting more and more and more. Like it's literally like I feel like my appendix scar is starting to open up with more discomfort. It's like hot and I can feel the heat going in different places as I talk about it. So, I don't know where this is going. I have a lot of years of experience of working with people going through stuff like this, and I could jump ahead, but I just hang out. So I take a breath. How you doing, Bucky? Bucky's like, I'm with you, buddy.
Yeah.
Hanging out.
And we're in support, Darren. Whatever you need. You need some tea?
That's right. Oh, I do need some tea, actually.
Watermelon?
Watermelon. Oh, no, we don't. Just some tea is good.
Buggy looks riveted, actually. It's hanging off of every word.
That's right. I left y'all on a cliffhanger. Okay, back to the kid wrapped in a blanket in green and black. So if this was a patient that I was working with, I would notice their breathing change. I would notice that they just put their hands over their solar plexus. What does that come up for me? What does it bring up for me? Are they guarding themselves? Are they wanting to stop the process? Are they afraid? Are they, is there some way that I need to facilitate this session in this moment so that they can stay with it? Does it need to stop? Maybe we do it next time, right? So you start to notice all the nonverbal cues. And over the years, I've gotten good at noticing my own, right? So I can do that with myself. So I'm noticing, all right, there's this kid on the steps. I don't know what to look at next. So I'm just kind of lost with it. Maybe I'm kind of getting stuck on the emotion of it. So I just notice. What do I notice? And I notice that there's some pain creeping up the back. So I keep noticing that. And it looks like kind of white and black streaks. It almost looks like a little insect of some sort. So I just keep noticing. And I have a lot of experience with different traditions where they talk about, what that might be. Doesn't matter to me. If I don't feel like that's what it is in the moment, so I'm using my senses. I'm not trying to change it. I'm not trying to make it go away. I'm letting everything come up. And I'm just noticing what I notice about it.
You're not trying to diagnose yourself.
I'm not trying to diagnose anything.
Not trying to find the deeper meaning right away.
Right. Right. You just follow it. So, and then over the years, you get a sense of okay, do I need to go to the hospital? Do I need, do I need a therapist? You go and talk to somebody if you don't know what to do and you get lost, right? You get stuck. So just go and hang out. Go to Marguerite, find me at the clinic, play guitar, learn how to take care of yourself. You don't just sit there and be in pain if you don't know what to do and how to resolve it, right? That's what medicine is for. I always like saying medicine is how you keep from exploding while you're along your spiritual path. Take advantage of all the ways that people can help. Okay, so there was is that a disclaimer? No, it's just my belief. That's my experience with stuff. Okay. So I feel this pain, and now for some reason I just saw a golf club. So I'm maybe it's the shape of the pain and how it comes up from the appendix area and then up through the back and in the middle there a little. And it reminds me of when I used to work at this internet company doing computer stuff. And we went on this golfing trip. And I didn't really fit in. I didn't feel like I fit in with so this is some of the thoughts coming up for me. I felt like I didn't fit in with the group. And that I was always kind of trying not to be as weird as I was. I was trying to be, and as you can tell, I like to talk a lot. So maybe I talk too much in the office or something. So there was always something that was uncomfortable. And going on this golf trip made me feel uncomfortable because it felt like it wasn't really a team building thing. It was more hey, we're an internet company and we're cool. So it felt pretentious. And I haven't really thought deeply about that since then. I didn't really have that feeling when I was going there consciously, but now looking back, I have a sense of it. And I felt the same way with my parents. I always felt like I didn't belong and wasn't really understood. So all of these things coming up, all of this stuff is stored in this pain, in this discomfort, in this feeling. You can call it a demon, right? Because it's just I'm here and I'm, it's changing your breathing and I might, if I was somebody who had anxiety all the time, I would have a panic attack or anxiety about something. And if you don't know what's going on behind it, you're like, why am I having a panic attack right now thinking about golf? Right? That's the connection into these deeper experiences that we've had in our life. And not to blame my parents, there's deeper stuff than that we could go into. It's not about blaming. It's like you stop there and then you're not listening anymore. You're just learning something right now. Right? So that's how I do it.
What about like when you learn what it is? Do you just
There's a place that you get to as you be more curious. So let me take it to another level so you can see the layers of it. All right, so that experience with the internet company and the golf and how it relates to my feelings in that moment when I was younger with my parents. And then even younger than that, the next memory that comes up when I was a kid, I sneezed, and where the psoas attaches along the spine, when I sneezed, I think I was like 6 or 7 or something like that, and literally my back went out like an old man. Like I sneezed, and like that pain that I feel right now as I'm talking, and it's escalating the pain along my psoas muscle here, my hip flexor. I can feel the pain where my back went out when I was a little kid. And I remember being kind of panicky about it, like, oh my God, like what's happening to me? And I just never said anything about it. And then, of course, it reminds me of this deep dream that I had, which I can talk about. But what I want to say now is that the connection here is always feeling like what I was thinking and what I was feeling and my expression. And it reminds me of another experience growing up, you know, where my expression wasn't met with very, wasn't welcome from my point of view, especially with one of my parents, with my father. So it felt like, so now this is seeing a connection of all these different layers, and any one of these things, you know, you could go into therapy for, you know. So because I can handle holding on to all these different pieces, this trajectory from all these different areas of my life, now I'm sitting there and it's like a Christmas tree all lit up in my mind, in my imagination. And then I hang out some more. And there's a layer that I get to, like you were saying, when you figure out what it is. It's not so much about figuring out what it is, although there's something like that where you get some clarity about, like, well, why am I holding on to this? What is being held on to? And you keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. Layer after layer of memory and thought and feeling and acknowledging things. And then for me and my experience, every time there's some, what I'm going to call a spiritual idea or concept. There's something about, like, for instance, the Buddha was looking for, why do people suffer? Some larger concept. All of a sudden, I start to make a connection between the places I've been in my life, the relationships I've had in my life, my money situation in my life, and these experiences that I'm explaining and describing that I'm feeling in my body. I start to see connections there, and my life starts to unfold as this symbolic representation. This imagery, like you could paint a picture of it. And then there's some wisdom that bubbles up in the middle of it. I start to see something about that changes my understanding of my relationship with my parents, with my pain, with life, with where things come from. There's something that happens. And to me, that's when I say you have to see things in the way that you need to see them for change to happen, that's the place that I'm talking about. And it's not an intellectual experience. It's actually experiencing the knowing of something. That to me is a definition of wisdom. So when you get to that place, that's a little piece of a puzzle in a little piece in a larger puzzle. And then that puzzle becomes a little piece in a larger puzzle. And you get this metaphor of the flower opening, like the lotus blossom, the lotus flower opening from the mud, this opening and widening of your eyes, your consciousness, your understanding. To me, that's why that's a metaphor for enlightenment. So it's not like you ever go, well, that's the answer. But you just start to know more about why life is the way it is and where things come from. And you get a sense, ultimately, of what's behind things. So before we were talking about the taiji is something that the world is, taiji means the farthest you can go before you can't name things anymore. Heaven and earth, being able to name everything. Well, what I'm experienced by looking at all of my issues in this way is I started to notice there's some pattern to it that's showing me something behind all the things you can name, something that I can't name. And that's a spiritual experience. If you'd like to see more videos like this, be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Leave me a comment and share this video with the people on your path. Thanks for joining me along the journey.